"Your equipment is obsolete, old man. We don't need eyeball estimates anymore." That's what the young spotter said to 67-year-old Earl Haskins on a fog-choked morning at the precision shooting range. 3 hours later, that same young man would be standing in silence, watching Earl do something no piece of modern technology could accomplish. If you believe that experience still matters in a world obsessed with gadgets, type "still sharp" in the comments right now. Earl Haskins had been coming to the Cedar Ridge Long Range facility for 11 years. Every Tuesday and Thursday morning, rain or shine, his faded green pickup would pull into the gravel lot before sunrise. He never talked much about his past. The other regulars knew he'd served, could tell by the way he carried himself, the quiet economy of his movements. But Earl wasn't one for war stories. He'd set up his rifle, an old Remington 700 that looked like it belonged in a museum, and he'd shoot, group after group, center mass, at distances that made younger shooters shake their heads. The range officers had learned to leave him alone. He didn't need instruction. He didn't need conversation. He just needed the stillness of the morning and the familiar weight of that rifle against his shoulder. The trouble started when Cedar Ridge hosted a regional law enforcement precision rifle qualification. 32 officers from 6 different departments arrived with their department-issued rifles, their Kestrel weather meters, their laser rangefinders worth more than Earl's truck. Among them was a young SWAT spotter named Derek Mullins, 26 years old, fresh from an advanced reconnaissance course where he'd learned to trust his electronics like gospel. Derek noticed Earl setting up at the far end of the line, away from the official qualification lanes. He watched the old man pull out a rifle with no visible optics beyond a simple scope, no bipod with cant indicators, no data book with ballistic calculators. Derek nudged his partner. "Check out Grandpa over there. Probably thinks he's Chris Kyle." They laughed. Earl heard them. He said nothing. He simply continued his preparation, the same ritual he'd performed 10,000 times before. The fog rolled in around 7:30, thick and white, swallowing the target berms like a slow tide. The laser rangefinders started giving error readings. The Kestrels couldn't compensate for visibility they couldn't measure. The qualification coordinator announced a delay, hoping the fog would lift. It didn't. An hour passed. The officers grew restless. Some complained about wasted time, about schedules, about equipment that cost taxpayers $50,000 and couldn't see through water vapor. Derek Mullins was particularly vocal. His spotter scope was useless. His rangefinder kept returning E1 errors. He'd been trained to feed data to his shooter, and without that data, he felt helpless. He looked down the line and saw Earl Haskins still shooting. Slow, methodical shots into the white nothing. "That old fool is just wasting ammunition," Derek said. "There's no way he can see anything out there." Earl could see just fine. Not the target itself, not clearly, but he could see the terrain features he'd memorized over 11 years. He knew the distance to that bent fence post was 412 yards. He knew the old oak stump sat at 630. He'd walked this range in summer heat and winter snow. He'd paced it off, not once but dozens of times, because that's how he'd learned to shoot 50 years ago in a jungle where batteries died and the electronics didn't exist. The football field method, his instructor had called it. Visualize a 100-yard football field between you and the target. Stack them up, count them, feel the distance in your bones. It wasn't magic. It was repetition. Thousands upon thousands of rounds fired without the crutch of technology until distance became instinct. The qualification coordinator approached Earl during a pause in his shooting. Behind him stood Derek Mullins and his partner, curious despite themselves. "Sir, we're trying to figure out a way to continue this qualification. None of our electronic equipment is functioning in this fog. I don't suppose you have any suggestions?" Earl lowered his rifle and turned slowly. His eyes, pale blue and steady, moved across the 3 men. "What distance you need?" The coordinator checked his clipboard. "We've got stages at 500, 700 and 900 yards. But without the rangefinders, we can't verify holds or confirm hits." Earl nodded toward the fog. "Your 500 marker is 12 yards past that depression where the ground dips. 700 is just short of where the fence line jogs left. 900, there's a boulder. Sits about 15 yards right of center," Derek scoffed. "With all due respect, sir, we can't run an official qualification on some old-timer's guesses." Earl didn't respond to the insult. He simply lifted his rifle, settled into position, and fired 3 rounds in quick succession. The shots disappeared into the fog, There was no way to confirm hits, no way to verify anything. Derek was about to make another dismissive comment when the coordinator's radio crackled. "Control, this is target pit. We just had 3 rounds impact on the 900-yard line. All 3 centre mass tight group. Who's shooting?" The coordinator stared at Earl. Earl was already adjusting his position for another target. "How did you do that?" the coordinator asked. "You can't see 900 yards in this soup." Earl chambered another round. "Don't need to see it. I know where it is." He paused, then added quietly. "Spent 18 months in Vietnam calling shots without any rangefinder except the one between my ears. Fog's just weather. Distance doesn't change." Word spread quickly along the firing line. Officers gathered behind Earl, watching him work through the fog like it wasn't there. He called distances for them, patient and precise. 437 yards to the second target, 619 to the third. He explained the method as he worked, pointing out terrain features barely visible through the white, teaching them to build mental maps, to trust their training over their tools. Derek Mullins stood at the back of the group, his expensive equipment hanging useless from his vest. He watched Earl guide shooter after shooter to hits they couldn't have made alone. The old man never raised his voice, never showed a hint of satisfaction at proving himself right. He just taught, the same way someone had taught him in a place far away and long ago. The fog lifted around noon, too late for the full qualification, but enough for abbreviated testing. The coordinator asked Earl if he'd be willing to stay to help verify distances against the now functioning lasers. Earl agreed. Every distance he'd called proved accurate within 5 yards, 900 yards through solid fog, estimated by eye alone, off by only 3 yards. Derek Mullins found Earl at his truck as the event was wrapping up. The young man stood there for a moment, struggling with something. "Sir, I owe you an apology. I was disrespectful this morning. I thought—" He trailed off. Earl closed his rifle case and looked at the young spotter. "You thought the equipment made the shooter. A lot of people think that. Equipment fails, weather changes, batteries die. What's in here?" He tapped his temple. "That's what you fall back on when everything else goes dark." Derek asked Earl where he'd learned to estimate distance like that. Earl was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the range where the fog had finally retreated. "Mekong Delta, 1968. I was a scout sniper with 3rd Marine Division. We didn't have lasers. We had our eyes, our experience, and each other. You learned to read terrain or you didn't come home. I've carried that with me for 55 years. Some skills, son, you don't forget. They become part of who you are." Derek extended his hand. Earl shook it. "I'd be honoured if you'd teach me," Derek said. "I mean really teach me. The old methods." Earl studied the young man's face, saw something genuine there, something hungry to learn beyond what screens could show. "Tuesday and Thursday mornings. I'm here before sunrise. Bring a notebook, not a computer." 6 months later, Derek Mullins would qualify as his department's top precision marksman, beating officers with twice his experience. When asked about his improvement, he told them about a Tuesday morning in the fog, about an old man with a beat-up rifle who could see distances nobody else could measure. He told them about Earl Haskins, scout sniper, teacher, the man who proved that the most advanced equipment in the world is still the trained human mind. Earl still comes to Cedar Ridge every Tuesday and Thursday. He has a few more students now. Young officers, competitive shooters, anyone willing to learn the old ways. They call him the fog shooter sometimes, though he waves off the nickname. He's just doing what he's always done, passing on what matters before it's forgotten. Some knowledge isn't stored in batteries, it's stored in generations. If you believe experience is a weapon that never runs out of power, subscribe to this channel and share this story with someone who needs to hear it.